that's going to explore deeply as to what Miguel said, the subject matter of systemic racism within this prison industrial complex. I know we are all feeling, I mean, this is not my first time watching this documentary, but revisiting this always stirs up this emotion, and I know we are all over here trying to figure out what we can do. So we got these folks over here who are, who understands the system in and out, and it's gonna give us solutions needed to figure this out. But I'm about to just go ahead and start on my hard side. First, I'm gonna introduce my man, Samuel Nathaniel Brown. He's an artist. Yes, please give a round of applause for my man. He's an artist, educator, philosopher, spoken word poet, and organizer. Through his own healing and transformation, he's been able to create pathways for others to realize their potential through social emotional learning. And this is special because he's actually really doing something. He is the original author of ACA 3, a bill he drafted while incarcerated, which will amend the California Constitution to end involuntary servitude, modern day slavery in the California state prisons. And outside from that, he's a musical artist, a two-time Louder Than Bomb statewide spoken word poetry champion, co-author of a children's book, Do You See Me, and a 2021 recipient of the Davis Vanguard Justice Award alongside his wife, Jamila. Jamila, you can wave your hand, man. Next is my brother, John Yahya Johnson. Assalamu alaikum. He's the co-producer of Ear Hustle, a podcast which amplifies the voices of incarcerated people through the power of storytelling. Now let me tell you, if you haven't heard the podcast Ear Hustle, please go on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever streaming service you're at, and please check it out. I'm telling you, it's amazing. But outside of that, he's passionate about about social justice reform because of his firsthand experience dealing with it. Along with the co-creator and producer of Ear Hustle, Earlonne Woods, he also is a proponent of the LEC Behind Act 2021, which is aimed to repeal the California notorious three strikes law that you saw in the documentary. And outside of that, he's also running a nonprofit dedicated to eliminating the school-to-prison pipeline through youth advocacy and mentoring. Thank you for being with us. And last but not least, Live's very own Sandra Haggerty. She's a part of she is the Violence Intervention Program Manager at Glide. She began her journey at Glide as a case manager in the Women's Center, where she worked with female domestic violence survivors and with female offenders in the San Francisco County Jail. In 2019, she transitioned to the Men in Progress program, where she facilitated borderers intervention groups for men who are court mandated to complete a 52-week domestic violence program. She's highly committed of Glide's mission, values, and principles. This is her walk. She's really passionate in addressing inequities through the criminal justice system by helping violence offenders unlearn their behavior and protecting victims from ongoing abuse. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna be going ahead and just passing the mic around like a hot potato, but my first question to you all is, what was going through your mind when you were seeing this documentary? Through your experience in involuntary servitude, being in the system, and seeing this, from a macro level.
So first of all, thank you for this opportunity to Glide, Brother Guled, Manuel, and everybody who worked hard to make this possible. And to my esteemed panelists members also. So what was going through my mind was how much really has not changed. You know, I've been home for about 110 days. I served 24 years. And when I saw the images of the prison cells, my wife had to tighten her grip on me a little bit because it jarred me. You know, living for 24 years in a little tiny cell like that, listening to the stories about Asada and so many others who fought for positive change, it really just touched me. With that said, it also made me feel really good about being in this room tonight with every single one of us, because we're the change makers of our time. And I feel like we're picking up that torch and carrying it on like all the people we've seen on that film. So on one hand, it jarred me and it touched my heart and it was real sad. On the other hand, I'm happy to be a part of the change makers and be in this room with the people who want to do something to make a difference.
Looking at the film really brought up some deep emotions for me. I mean, we call ourselves directly system impacted people, and having served 25 years on a 30-year life sentence under the California 3 Strikes Law for nonviolence, and looking at that film and seeing the small cells of San Quentin, that you can outstretch your hand on either side and scale the wall, and think about PETA, right, lobbying Congress to make that, right, not even dignified to hold chickens and animals in, but they would hold a human being in, really stirred up some really painful emotions. And like the brother Sam said, to see that it hasn't changed, really resonates with me. Being in such an oppressive environment and seeing it firsthand, right? And we say it all the time, right? We were already sentenced to an inordinate, unjust amount of time by the court system. But then to come in and have that even further exacerbated by these agents of the state who get paid inordinate amounts of money to continue to oppress us to the breaking point. It takes a certain kind of character to be able to do that kind of time and not succumb to mental illness, right? Not succumb to hatred, not sabotage yourself and compound the sentence, if you will, right? And so for me, just sitting here, I'm emotional, I'm tearful, I sit here with a heavy heart because I am one of the many thousands of people that exist in the prison system all around America and the world, if you will, who has to endure this undying legacy of hatred in this country. And so for me, it just continues to underscore the fact that we have to be the agents of change that we want to see, right? Because I have no faith in the legislature. Anytime you can get a man like Donald Trump up there to pretty much mirror word for word what has happened since the inception of slavery in America and the repeated attempts to control us through this brutality and empower people to do it, there's no way I can sit here in good faith and say that I'm comfortable with a legislator making decisions to change our circumstances. And so it just underscores the fact that we have to do it ourselves.
It's hard. I sat up there and I watched it and just tears coming down my face. I was one of those people as well. I was in the federal system. I did a 3-year bid in the feds. As they were talking, I remember Unicor. I worked for Unicor. I remember having to decide if I'm going to take my plea, which I have problems with plea bargaining, or am I going to go to trial? And I went to trial, and I took my chance and rolled my dice. I think I came out a winner, not quite sure, but 3 years as opposed to 30 years, I think I won that one. I think I won that battle. Then probation after, and that's just for me. Listening to them talking about parole and probation, it's a trap. I'm sorry, it's a trap. It definitely is. Once you're on probation and you do one thing wrong and you're just on probation forever. So this movie, yeah, it touched me. I seen it, and I forgot the impact it had the first time. It had an even bigger impact this time, and it just made me sad because I know that I'm not an African American man, but I already knew, and my parents, they warned me, they want you to be locked up, and I gave them exactly what they wanted. And so that's on me. And I have sons. And so as my sons got older, I tried to warn them. And unfortunately, they didn't heed my warning, and they both have spent some time behind bars. So hopefully I can break this with my grandkid, but it's sad. But I'm willing to say something before I pass it back. Don't ever give me the mic. But I went to Alabama, and one of the things I realized, one of the things we were told in Alabama was that this system, and this is proof, this system of mass incarceration, while I don't like it, and hopefully you guys don't like what's happening, this is exactly what they built. So while we don't like it, this is exactly how they wanted it to be, and so that's just how it is, and it's not gonna be fixed until we fix this. This is not right. It really isn't right. So I'm gonna give the mic all the way back down.
No, thank you so much for that, Sandra. This question is directly to you, Sam. I know, I wanted to ask, what has your journey been like, from being formerly incarcerated to now co-authoring this assembly bill abolishing involuntary servitude from the 13th Amendment?
Wow. So my journey. I was in prison before I was in prison. Let's get that straight. My community was San Quentin. Lompoc and Calapat and Ironwood. We was socioeconomically fenced in, emotionally fenced in, politically fenced in, and almost everybody I know that went to prison because they were trying to escape the prison that they were already in and didn't even know that they were in prison. So when you talk about my journey, what I now understand about myself and so many others, that it didn't begin when I got incarcerated. In the 10P program, which is a program that I was fortunate to found while I was incarcerated, we have a saying that says there are more people in prison than there are incarcerated. And while I was there, I had to do a great deal of self-introspection and understand, how did I wind up in prison to begin with? I'm not born a bad person. Almost everybody I was surrounded by, they were not born bad people. And as a result, I posited the theory of emotional illiteracy-based criminality, which holds that no one is born bad, no one is born evil, but people adopt criminality as a coping mechanism for unprocessed traumas. So much of what we've seen on the film when it was, talking about systemic level racism and oppression and how that translates into the communities and the decisions that people feel like they have to make in order to survive, I came to conclude that it was a number of factors that contributed to me finding myself in prison. It wasn't just internal attribution, as some people would like you to believe, but it's external attribution as well. Do I accept responsibility and accountability for my actions and my decisions? Of course I do. Will I turn a blind eye to the system and the way that it influences my reality and my existence? I will not. So for me, sitting in prison, doing my best to evolve, because there was no signs when I walked in and said rehabilitation this way. This is what rehabilitation looks like. That wasn't happening. That's the narrative that they sell to the public. We incarcerate somebody, when we put them in prison, we're seeking to rehabilitate them. That's what everyone's told. But that's not true. You become more traumatized, you become desensitized, you don't feel like you're wanted in society. It's a host of things, and you actually feel like you have nothing, no self-worth, no self-efficacy, no self-determination. You have to really dig deep. Like Brother Yaya was just saying, you have to really dig deep in order to survive in an environment like that that's meant to strip you of everything all the way down to your humanity. And they only set out to just work you to death because you're worth more inside of a prison cell than you are outside of a prison cell, especially when you come from our communities, to them, right? So for me, my journey was a lot of reading, autodidactic studies, you know what I'm saying? It was academic, it was refusing to be broken. Because when I first got to the prison, you know, I had a couple guys like, here's a knife, here's some alcohol, here's some marijuana, be cool. You know, I had some other ones who were like, here's a knife, here's some marijuana, but here's a book. Get you some knowledge of self, you know? And so I thank my mom for giving me knowledge of God, because that was what prevented me from being broken, first and foremost, was knowledge of God and always being able to stand on my faith, right? But George Jackson said prison does one of two things. It either makes you the best version of yourself that you've ever been, or it breaks you. And so early on, I decided that I would not be broken. I would not place more, concern on material items, seeking just to get material items upon my release. I would not just sit there and become worse and thinking that what led me to prison was the same type of behavior that I would pick up when I got out and try to be a smarter criminal, because that just means I'm broken. Because I'm thinking that I can, come back and return and do the things that I was once doing that got me there, but I can do it better. That's not a sign of evolving, that's a sign of being broken. So to sum it up, man, my journey has been one of taking, excuse my language, but at one point the system convinced me that I was a nigga. And I'm not a nigga, I'm a black man, right? And in reclaiming that, I refuse to continue to participate in criminal behavior. I refuse to run from my traumas. I refuse to let toxic masculinity, dictate my thoughts and my behaviors and my actions. So I knew not only did I have to change me, but I wanted to see other people change too. And I wanted to change the system. And man, I can go on and on and on about it. You know what I'm saying?
No, definitely. And just as far as with like co-authoring the bill, yeah.
All right, I appreciate that.
Nah, but it's still riveting, man.
So I was voluntold,
yeah.
right? The court man told I was voluntold by my wife that I needed to do something about this, this travesty, this injustice that has never been abolished. In the film, I heard him say like 2 or 3 times, slavery ended in 1865, or when slavery ended, but slavery never ended. That's why we're here. It's never ended, it was just repackaged. You know what I mean? They took slavery from mainstream, any street in the USA, and they put it behind prison fences. The plantations, California is the premier plantation state. When they sought to make California part of the Union in 1849, it was to expand slaveholding territory. A lot of people don't know that. And so when it was ratified in 1850, that was the purpose of it, to expand slaveholding territory. So when you fast forward to today, with over 36 prisons, this is the premier plantation state. The goal was accomplished. And so I had a job. I was a healthcare facility maintenance worker inside the prison. Now, COVID-19 had hit, and I was considered a hospital janitor. I was the first person in the state of California in the carceral setting to have to disinfect and clean and sanitize a cell and an office where somebody had tested positive for COVID-19. And after doing that, one time I was terrified, everybody was terrified, nobody knew what to expect. I expressed to my supervisors, I was like, well, you know what? I'm not gonna do this every day anymore. I can't come risk my life for 75 cents an hour, and y'all don't even care about me with inadequate PPE and so forth and so on. And first they thought I was joking, but then they told me that I had no choice but to come perform this job, or I would get a 115. And for those of y'all who don't know, a 115 is a rules violation report. That's the modern day whip. That's what they use to compel you to do something that you otherwise would not want to do. And so when I expressed that to my wife, she was like, well, baby, can we do something about it? I said, no, it's in the law. This is part of the Constitution that I cannot refuse, or they have the right to punish me for it. And so because we're part of the Abolish Slavery National Network, and we're seeking to abolish the 13th Amendment and its derivatives in like 32 states throughout the nation, we decided to spearhead the movement here in California. And so I went back to my cell, I wrote the proposal to amend Article 1, Section 6 of the California Constitution. My wife then took it to Assembly Member Sidney Lager, who has since then become Senator Sidney Lager, and picked the bill up. And it's been embraced by a lot of people who know that slavery has no place in our society in 2022.
And that's truly phenomenal work. And Brother Yahya, I know you've done also a lot of organizing work inside the system and outside. I would like to just know what was it like, being just with your experience, what was it like organizing inside the prison system?
Like both of my esteemed panelists, the first thing is accountability, right? And with accountability becomes responsibility. And so, Ava DuVernay did an awesome job and makes it all too clear about what mass incarceration is. It's about servitude, but it's also about exploitation. A lot of people don't know, like me and Sam know, I'm not sure about you, but a lot of these corporations that were on this screen behind us were corporations that continue to exploit our families once we were incarcerated and ourselves. We had Kiefe, we had JPay, we had all of these companies that were responsible for giving us our food and our packages and all of these different things at an exorbitant rate. And so when we think about it, these are corporations that are extortionists, if you will. These are corporations that act like vultures and prey on the carcasses of individuals who are victims of laws like the 13th Amendment, right? And so there's no way that I can sit in prison and address my traumas that have been compounded by police brutality, racism, drug abuse, and all of these different things, and heal myself and not address these issues. And so when I sit in prison for the last 25 years, amongst people like Sam, it was incumbent upon us. They say when you know better, it's incumbent upon you to do better. So we couldn't sit in those prison cells idly and waste our time when we knew that there was a concerted effort being made to wipe us out of existence through laws like the California Three Strikes Law, through laws like involuntary servitude, where you can go work for PIA and make furniture for corporations and get paid 5 cents. And then you have a corporate vulture like JPay that's taking your money because they're charging you $1 for a 10-cent top ramen, right? But then Arab Market's giving you food with maggots in it, and the product of it is so inferior that you have no choice but go to a canteen and get processed food and give that money right back. So for individuals who wasn't as emotional intelligent, who wasn't as knowledgeable, would work inside these prisons for all of these years, give their money back, parole with $200 gate money, and have nothing to sustain themselves, right? And so for us, it was evident, right? You become the change you want to see, right? The system makes a great effort in trying to curtail that, right? With the murder of Medgar Evers, with the murder of Martin Luther King, the murder of Malcolm X. But we will not be deterred, right? And so for us, it was clear. In prison, you can't organize. But what we did was work under the auspices of the educational department and foreign policy groups and discuss these issues, right? And planted the seeds in individuals who had that revolutionary spirit in there, who followed in the ranks of people like George Jackson, who read Soledad Brother and Blood in My Eye, who wanted to make a difference. And we began to empower people with the information, right? And when we started getting books by Michelle Alexander, The New Jim Crow, which pretty much put these things in context and showed us for the last several hundred years in America, things haven't changed, we knew then that we had to become the change we want to see. And so with that, we started to spearhead movements like Proposition 17 because we realized giving incarcerated people, as well as formerly incarcerated people, the right to vote, we can change the dynamic, right? We can change the dynamic of how legislation works. We don't want to force the current legislators that are in there that are beholden to people like Alec. What we want to do is we want to use our voting block to threaten and take people out of positions of power, to put people of color in power, to change what we need to change, right? And so that's what we started doing. And so the inception of Repeal 3 Strikes and a lot of other bills that are coming up came from rooms, small classrooms with 10 or 15 people that grew exponentially over time And when I paroled in April 28th of 2020, it was one of these things I left San Quentin with, this fire. I left San Quentin with this fire to come out here and be the impetus of change, right? Not just for incarcerated people who are left behind, but for the youth out here who don't stand a chance with the school to prison pipeline, right? It's crazy that it costs $80,000 to incarcerate a person every year. $16,000 to send somebody to a CSU, $34,000 to send somebody to Harvard, but we're willing to invest in mass incarceration and not give people a chance. What that tells me is you don't want to see people of color successful, right? And so if that's the case, why should we trust in you, right? And so these policy groups came about because we recognize the need to do for self, right, in order to get community wealth. And that's what it was about.
Thank you for that. It's truly inspiring that, both, everybody on this panel, y'all the antithesis to ALEC, the conservative think tank that's there decided up to set us up for failure in the first place. Sandra, I wanted to ask, because, the power of what we're discussing right now is about education, and I know through your experience, with your family, and also you're talking about breaking the generational traumas of how systemic racism has affected the lives of those you serve at Glide and also with your family. What is some of the advice that you give folks on how to navigate that?
So the advice that I give to the men and the women that come through the Lights gates is I try to, first of all, if you don't know your history, it's a wrap. So I try to educate. A lot of people that come through, they just don't know the history. They don't understand how they got to prison, and that this is like the Willie Lynch. It's set up to be this way. And so I try to give them that information, a lot of social justice work. I tell them my experience of how I got, even though I knew my parents wanted me. And yet I still found myself in this oppressive system for 3 years. So I just give them the information, also talk about the criminal justice system, this is my personal feeling, that probation and parole are just traps. It's to keep you, because once you get out, you're not out, because you're usually, if you go to prison, you're gonna be on probation or you're gonna be on parole, depending on which system, the criminal justice system. And like I said earlier, one mistake, those conditions of parole, and they just tack another year, y'all know, they tack another year, and what should have been 2 years of probation, you got 10 years of probation, right? It's like the hamster on the wheel. I just try to give them the information, how I see it, but also what's real. You pled guilty. You saw the young man. I'm not pleading guilty to something I didn't do, right? I try to educate those people that come to me for the information. I get it. Nobody wants to sit in jail, right? You don't have the money. I get it. You're gonna lose your job probably. You're gonna lose this, you're gonna lose that. But just sometimes we just gotta do it for principle. I'm not pleading now. I'm gonna say this. I did what I got accused of. I actually turned myself in after a few months. I did. And I don't know if that was the best idea, but I did it. The thing is that, yes, I did it, but 30 years for doing that? You gotta be kidding me. The feds have a minimum, like they were talking, it's 85% period when you're in the feds. The state is different. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding, but what the feds do is they just enhance everything. If you used a gun, this. If you've had priors, this. We're gonna give you 5 points and this equal. So after they added up all my points, what should have been a minimal, 3 to 5 years, they want to charge me for 30 years. I don't think so. I'm gonna take my chances and go. So That's what I do. I just try to educate. You know, I just try to educate, and I want people to understand the criminal, men of color, it's not set up to help you. It's oppressive. This is how it is. And you have to be proactive. Because if not, they're gonna have you right where they want you to be, and that's in prison. It breaks up families. You know, I mean, we know this. We know this. Being incarcerated, it's not just that individual. It affects the family, and it affects the community.
This question is to you all, because I know for sure, to all of y'all, it's because I know we're all charged up, we're all fired up, and with a viewing like that, I know for sure for myself, like it stirs up a lot for a lot of emotion. I haven't been through that experience, but to see and to witness that, to know that this is a system that's designed to set us up for failure in the first place, I really, what can we do as you all who are prison rights activists who have worked with this within the system? What can we do to help and to help with the movements that y'all created, with whether it be repeal 3 strikes, whether it be abolishing that clause in the 13th Amendment, and with the work that you're doing, Sandra?
Thank you for that. So what you can do is vote, first and foremost. Voting is important, and encourage the people around you to vote. What you can do is take back your own thought process, your own perspectives. We were all socialized into seeing each other a certain type of way. A moment ago, when Mr. Johnson, Brother Yaya, mentioned coming out of these holes, these stoops, without being filled with hate and anger and apathy, that's no easy feat. That takes a great deal of work for me to be able to come out and recognize that this is what humanity looks like. These various faces, all of these different people, this is humanity. But this is not what I was told as a youth. I was socialized into believing that I'm supposed to hate white people, or I can't trust these people, or I can't even trust or like myself. This is what I was taught. And so what you can do, one of the things is, first of all, take back your mind and reassess people and situations and cultural paradigms for yourself. Don't allow somebody else's imagination to run off with your reality. If it doesn't look right, if it doesn't smell right, it doesn't taste right, it's not right. Common has a line where he says it doesn't take a whole day to recognize sunshine. It don't. This is slavery. ACA 3 represents ending slavery. It's a moral issue. It's an issue of public safety. It's about rehabilitation. And they made it real clear on the 13th. But like my big bro Max Parthas tells me, he said, 13th tells you about the problem. We represent the solution. You understand what I'm saying? We represent the solution up in here. So what you can do is push your local representatives to stand for the legislation that you know needs to take place. Get involved. Talk to people that don't necessarily come from the same background as you or look like you. Have empathy. Volunteer. Get to know these people for yourself and realize that no one is born bad, no one is born evil, and that we all are much more alike than you realize. You understand? And want for the other person, some of the next person, what you want for yourself. That's crucial. Because if you do, then you will not stand idly by and watch as a travesty like this continues to take place. You will not watch the American Legislative Exchange Council push this model legislation all throughout the nation to decimate communities of color and marginalized peoples. You will not, because you wouldn't want that to happen to you. So there's a host of things you can do. And all of us are not, gifted with the same talents. Some of us may be able to speak. Some of us may be able to write. Some of us have financial resources. Some of us can raise awareness. Bring what you can bring to the table and contribute that. This is how we stand as one body and we effectuate the change that we all want to see. So those are just some of the things that you can do that come to mind.
I
guess one of the first things that I would implore everybody to do is to bear witness, right? To bear witness to the conditions that exist in our communities, right? And then after that, see yourself as community. You know, he said humanity, right? Great thing. Prisons work really hard to dehumanize. We push back against that social construct because I never consider myself anything less than a human, right? And so when we talk about senses of community, this is what I personally believe gets things done. Hillary Clinton's a liar. Bill Clinton's a liar. Many of these politicians up here that vowed to make changes during their political campaigns, one, recognize that these laws were inherently racist, that these laws inherently impacted people of color, and we've seen the militarization of police forces, kicking down doors with battle rams and things that were used in Iraq and Afghanistan right here in our communities. And yet we can sleep good at night, right? And saying, well, these are just crackheads, these are just criminals who are breaking our windows. But it's a deeper problem. It's a systemic problem that's been going on, like one of the esteemed people on this documentary said, since we came over here against our will on slave ships, right? And that since in 1865, when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, they wanted to figure out a new way to redesign the system to continue to benefit from servitude, something that this brother is working pretty hard to get recognized, one, and to get abolished. But we have to all see ourselves as one community in order to make the positive and substantive change that we need. The tools that's used to continue to perpetrate this fraud against people of color in this country is divisiveness. When we don't see ourselves as community, it makes it easier for us to have apathy. And when we see Trayvon Martin, when we see Michael Brown and all of these individuals being murdered by state-sanctioned cops, it's easier for us to say, well, he shouldn't have been out at 11 o'clock. He shouldn't be stealing cars or any of these things, right? We have to bear witness to these things and be appalled. Because whether you recognize it or not, we're paying for it as taxpayers. I'm appalled that I sit here and get hit for an inordinate amount of money out of my pockets to pay for the stuff that's going on here, right? And more importantly, be a victim of it. I want to just share this one thing with you, right? I'm accountable as I can be. I committed the crime I committed, right? But watch this. California 3 strikes law. It say you commit a crime, you go to prison. You get an opportunity to reform your so-called criminal conduct. If you come back under the purview of the system again, you get double the base term. You get released. So what that means is you get twice the amount of time that you got the first time. And then if you don't, what they say, approve or improve on your aberrant behavior, then we will retire you for 25 years to life and give you a whole bunch of time to think about what you did. I have one prior prison term and a current conviction that got me life in prison, all for nonviolence. So what does that mean? It means that I went from first to third miraculously, never touched second base, got a second opportunity to reform before I did 25 years on a 30-year to life sentence. What does that look like? I was 22 years old when I went to prison. I was a college student, one. I was working at Gladman Memorial Hospital as a maintenance technician, but I had issues. I had emotional issues. I grew up in a family that was highly abusive, and I didn't know how to necessarily deal with those things. So the social construct of being a part of a community with other individuals who hurt like me and coming together and having a sense of family, and we perpetrated that hurt on our societies. Yes, we did. But at the same time, no one in society as community said, let me take your hand and help you. Let me be the rock that you need to deal with certain things that you may not be able to deal with in your community. And for that, I was given a life sentence like thousands of other people who went from first to third base, never getting a second opportunity to reform. The question is why? Why is it that you can have a law like this that everyone endorses, but then it's not even applied appropriately? The three strikes law is not your friendly game of baseball. And despite the fact that Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the Koch brothers, and all these individuals have vowed to have substantive criminal justice reform, today I'm sitting here as a proponent of the Left Behind Act of 2022 with another proponent, Earlonne Woods, and we're the only ones pushing this three-strike law reform, right? We're the only ones. And so I'm just asking you as a community to bear witness to the fortuneness of these individuals up here that we put in office and that we continue to give tax dollars to misappropriate and be accountable for one, community and the monies that you invest in the people that oppress.
I'm gonna say something Sam said as far as my work at Glide. I don't believe anybody comes out, nobody comes out the womb and says, when I grow up, I'm gonna be violent.
Right.
And nobody comes out the womb and says, when I grow up, I wanna go to prison, okay? That's what men of color, that's what they're facing when they come out, the second one. It's already kind of written, they are gonna go unless somebody intervenes. Now, what can we do? You have to address racism. You have to. You know, when you're silent and you don't say anything, you're not part of the solution, you're actually the problem. You're the problem, okay? You are the problem. So that's first. I'm big on voting. I finally got my rights back to vote. It took me a minute, but I got them back. I vote. Get involved with social justice. I'm gonna plug Glide social justice in here. Get involved with the social justice here at Glide, okay? They are working on policy, changing policy, writing new policy, okay? Those are the things we can do, but I'm big on, work on your racism and understand that they said it. It's not normal. It's not normal, and I'm just gonna be Sandra. The people that work at Glide, they know me. If you are white, work on your shit. Work on your shit, okay? Work on your shit, please. And understand, it's not my job as a black woman to help you. You need to go and work with it, and then you can come to me. But work on it, because, honestly, I didn't cause this. We didn't cause this. We didn't do this. We got taken.
Say it again
And the
again
thing about
and
it
again.
is, they came to Africa, okay? They came and to bring us here to work. That's why they brought us here. They didn't, I think it was in the movie somebody said it, but they didn't bring us over there to say, oh, we're gonna bring you over here, give you a good life, and we wanna show you something. No, you coming over here to work. You coming over here to be a slave, okay? So this ain't right, this is not normal. So work on your shit, understand this is racist. It's not okay. And if you truly want to live in a world with some equality for everybody, you got privilege and you don't understand it and how it affects me, my people, how it affects that next generation, this ain't gonna change. It ain't gonna change, okay? Your privilege is cool for you, but for the rest of us, those of us of darker skin, it doesn't work for us. So, tell your friends, get some groups together, do whatever, but definitely, because we can't do it ourselves. We sit up here, we're African American, and we have, allies, be an ally, but we need help. I'm not gonna lie, at least I feel we need help. We can't do it ourselves, but we need allies that understand where they sit with their privilege. So, that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, y'all. Let's give a round of applause. Let's keep our power going. Right on. I'd love to thank you phenomenal panelists for helping us, provide us with wisdom. I'd love to thank the Legacy Committee and Last Center for Social Justice in making this happen. Please get involved with us. Oh, Miguel, do you? Oh yeah, please do.
So we have some special guests here Hydra Mendoza, who's on our board of directors. Her husband, Eric McDonald, who's leading the reparations effort here in San Francisco. We have Alma Robinson and Toya Moses, both long-time activists here in San Francisco. Alma is actually leading the effort on the abolition movement with the organization out of Grace Cathedral. So she's been very active with that. So just want to really thank them for being here. And let's thank Guled Muse, my brother, for putting this together. Thanks a lot of the staff at Glide. Thank the staff here at Piano Fight. And all the information regarding the organizations and the movements are going to be on our website. So please sign up, be a part of the change. We have to do it. We have to do it. So we're going to rely on all of you. Eric Arguello is going to be sitting at the table. Hopefully you can sign up. You can do it with your phone and everything. It's fast. So thank you all.
So, I know, we're kind of over time, but I must say, I wanted to really end this on a note with passing the mic on to my brother Samuel Brown. I told y'all before that he's a spoken word champion, and y'all gonna know why. So I'm gonna go ahead and go pass it to my brother to conclude this beautiful event. Right on. My name is Samuel Nathaniel Brown, and I'm one of the ones they were never supposed to set free. Not because I'm a bad guy, but rather because they know I'm gonna come back to get the rest like me. And they ain't gonna stop until I'm R.I.P. So kill me now. Tales from the plantation, better yet fresh from the plantation. So fresh in fact, that eyes can still feel the sting in the open wounds from master's whip across my back. Yeah, fresh like that. It was me and Nat Turner, then Mark Vesey, Toussaint L'Ouverture, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, Zora Neale Hurston that fed my soul. As I turned page after page, realizing my purpose and better understanding my role in the grand scheme of things. See, the more my family and friends died while I was on the inside, the more I cried and tried to hide beside my pride, the more I imbibed that which was inscribed about those who gave their life and their stride to project, protect, and provide the sacred message that I was not here to merely survive, but actually be alive. Imagine that. The more I juxtaposed their American experience with mine, the more it became clear. God didn't place me here just to be your lupin proletariat, to dedicate my entire life to chasing after a big screen TV and some 30-inch rims for your modern-day European chariot. I ain't no scary cat or no Judas Iscariot. I'm the one with the cross that's bearing that. When I left the concentration camps, those who couldn't come along said, "Speak for us." And I promised them I would, so the responsibility, I'm wearing that. And it could bring me to an early death, but I'm staring at eye to eye, face to face, head to head, toe to toe, neck to neck, body approved, read my list, my heart don't pump no fear. I ain't scared to die. I repeat, I am not afraid to die. Run that. Disrespecting my mama, disrespecting my sisters, disrespecting myself, ill and stealing, dealing, receiving life in prison, going hard in the prison riots on the yard. I done done that. And now I come back. While ice on my testicles and smelling salts in my nostrils. Considered to be hostile and intolerable, I just think they upset because I become a bit more knowledgeable. Something that I entirely gotta thank their colleges for. For the majority of my studies were autodidactic, meaning I did the mathematics. And realized that in addition to the division of our factions that they caused with the fraction of humanity that they bestowed when they subtracted and extracted the resource from my community, but didn't calculate it would be an exponential increase in this revolutionary desire to get free. Which brings us back to me. And my beef with the ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. A group of politicians and corporations with an agenda so filthy that just saying their name makes me feel like I need to wash my mouth out with soap and sterilize my tonsils to keep this delivery clean, nice, to ensure you get what I mean. Know what I mean?
And if you really want to talk insight and collective factors, then we need to trace this thing back beyond my moms and my pops, but connect the dots to 1619. Because that's when America officially decreed that my black life didn't matter, that I was forever to be at the lowest rung of the socio-economic ladder, that if I wanted to see my past, I had to do so through a glass that was shattered, a cultural fabric torn and tattered, a diaspora that had been scattered, abandoned critical race theory, and the contributions of the bruised and battered to adopt your popular narrative that had been euphemized and padded. I would not have it. Nevertheless, I digress. Back to the American Legislative Exchange Council and the prison industrial complex. So we fast forward from 1619 to 1865, where we debunk yet another lie, which is the Civil War was fought to emancipate people that look like you and I. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Civil War was nothing more than an antitrust suit, litigated in blood on the battlefield to break the monopoly that the southern states had on the latest technology, for it was slavery, not the steam engine that revolutionized industry. It was slavery that increased the GDP of every Western European nation to levels that had never before been seen. Slavery was the latest technology, the first form of mass automation. It eradicated jobs they didn't want to do, created ones they could, cut labor costs, maximized profits, and built the wealth of nations. So don't tell me about Abraham Lincoln and them other 200 and something white men in the 39th Congress. They wasn't concerned about equity and equality. They was focused on white supremacy and profits. As a youth, it sounded splendid when they mentioned the 13th Amendment and how it was the reason that slavery ended. But now my understanding of the system is so much more intimate that these days when I hear it, quite frankly, I get offended. Because I now understand it was never abolished, it was merely conditioned on a socially constructed mechanism known as due process and the subsequent felony conviction. That's why your loved one's ass is in prison. They can't refuse to work in the kitchen without repercussions, consequences, and restrictions. And that support services job that they're given don't even offer them certification they can use upon their release to improve their quality of living, to increase employability and decrease recidivism. They don't pay them a wage in the case so they can be a factor in the life of their children, pay tax fees, make tax payments, pay restitution, pay court fees, or be a factor in the life of their children. But if they refuse that job that they're given, then they receive 115 lashes for that modern day whip that they wielded. And the Board of Parole hearings will give them a 15-year, 10-year, 5-year denial and extend they stay in prison. It's a bondage system predicated upon anachronistic criminological concepts from a bygone classical era. Therefore, it's incumbent upon us as a collective to evolve in our shared humanity because it's 2022 and we got to know that we can do better. We can do better. Rehabilitation needs to be supplanted with citizenship training. That's the focus on education, social emotional learning, and vocational training. That's our mission and our vision in the California Abolition Act Coalition, the Anti-Violence Safety and Accountability Project, ASAP, and the Young Women's Freedom Center, the Love You Don't See, Pride and True Prison from the Inside Out, Black Allies Speak, the California Reparations Task Force, and all of our frontline riders. And I sent out a special burst of heart resonance to our beloved Warrior Queen Senator Sidney Kamlaga, Assemblymember Ash Cara, and U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley. And before I leave, I put out a call to arms to all of the engaged college students from USC to UCLA to CSUN to CSULA to Berkeley, Oakland to Frisco, Sacramento to San Diego. I know we can end slavery in California if they did it in Utah, Nebraska, and Colorado, so let's go. Everybody talking about let's vote and making social change, then really vote and be out there and make be the reason that they make a change. I said ACA 3, give us free. Give us free. ACA 3, Tales from the Plantation. Thank you very much.
And Glide is so happy to announce that we are part of this movement of abolishing this clause from the 13th Amendment. So everyone, good night. Thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you to Piano Fight. Thank you to everyone who's involved in helping this happen. Take care.